Hey, what's going on? Adam here with the Game Machine, bringing you a topic video talking about the life expectancy that I feel of 2D fighters. What are my thoughts on the 2D animated fighter? Basically what I mean is the 2.5D versus the traditional hand-drawn style art or sprite art that we may be used to. Do I think it's going the way of the dodo? Well, I want to talk about my history of fighting games and stuff like that, and animation in general. I grew up watching Disney movies, Disney cartoons, I grew up watching all kinds of cartoons, and majority of those were 2D animated. Then eventually, things like Toy Story came out, which I did watch and did enjoy quite a bit, and Toy Story 2. Then I kind of just fell off the animation bandwagon, so to speak. I still watch stuff like Pokemon and whatever was coming on Toonami, and that looks great. But then, as years gone down, Disney has completely shifted. Even other companies like, I want to say DreamWorks has too, completely shifted to 3D, and that's almost they completely forgot about 2D animation. And there's just a magic to me of that 3D can't always replicate. Now, this is just my opinion on it. Some people may really love the newer 3D Disney movies, and that's fine. No hating on that. But for me, there's just something more fantastical about 2D animation. And the one thing about 2D animation that I really loved about fighting games is how fluid everything could be when it was done right, of course. And there were other companies that tried to do things differently from the beginning, such as Mortal Kombat using live motion capture and actors. So they were always trying to be realistic. Killer Instinct kind of did the 3D animated, things, kind of like Donkey Kong Country. So they were trying to go for more realistic, but stuff like Street Fighter, Guilty Gear, even games like King of Fighters, they are all now going to a 2.5D style. Street Fighter had already been that way since 4, but Guilty Gear, this is the first step they have done. Their BlazBlue series, which I think the last game is actually coming out. They're claiming the last game in the main series, unless they do a spin-off or something at some point. But I guess that story arc, or whatever it is they're talking about, is concluding. So the last-ish BlazBlue game may be the last actual traditional 2D. Who knows when it comes to that. I love their 2D artwork, and they've done really good. There's a few people out there, mostly small indie developers. We had Under Night in Birth that came out about a year or so ago. We had also games that I cover, like Koei and Indu. And there's a few other, obscure fighters, indie fighters out there, and some stuff that people are making, like Skullgirls, that do have that 2D art to them. And I think that, I hope that doesn't completely go away. Now, Guilty Gear tries to kind of keep some of that in its 3D, and it's actually trying something new and unique, and I think it's a very beautiful style. And, I'm glad that they kind of went that way. It was kind of a hybrid between the old and the new, whereas, Street Fighter, I feel, kind of is trying to go away from that and try to look more cartoony, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not exactly the same. But for me, traditional 2D animation is something that I really enjoy, whether it be a movie or even in games. I love platformers and stuff around, so I grew up in the Super Nintendo NES era with those kind of things. And of course, I did play PlayStation 64 games, and I play 3D games, and I'm fine with those. And I'm fine with watching some 3D movies. I like Advent Children. I'm not ashamed to admit it. Yeah, sure, it's blatant fan service, but who cares? And I want to watch Kingsglaive. Square Enix makes some of the best 3D animation. My gosh, they look so realistic. But, and Kingdom Fighters 14 is the newest one to also try to go 3D when it had its 2D roots. Didn't really work well for Samurai Showdown, as you guys have seen in my past video, talking about how ugly that looks. And Kingdom Fighters 14, I think, fares a little bit better. At least in the gameplay department, it's definitely way better than Samurai Showdown Sin ever will be. And if you guys have not seen my Halloween special on it, you can check it out. But just don't pick up the game at all. I'm just going to tell you right now, it's awful. It's garbage. Samurai Showdown Sin. But Kingdom Fighters 14 still plays good. Just doesn't look as great. And that could have benefited from either a specific kind of art style like what Street Fighter was doing, or what Guilty Gear was doing with their art style. And granted, I know SNK doesn't have a ton of money, but it's just weird that the models don't look that great. And that's what I'm wondering is if we're going to see more of this shift. From the bigger companies, I could say for certain we can see a shift in that. But I'm wondering if the traditional 2D style is completely gone now, because the 2D style to me is what fighting games were like. It's just it's kind of like watching like an anime unfold in front of you, and it's just something about it that brings me such pleasure. I wish I could quantify it into proper English words, but I'm sure some of you may have a similar feeling. But needless to say, I think that we may start see a trend that these things will be more 2.5D. A lot of other games are doing it. There are a few people still doing throwback stuff, like Yacht Club games with Shovel Knight and WayForward with Shantae. Those are mostly indie developers. But it seems like people are going for more artistic 3D styles, and maybe it's cheaper. I'm not an expert in animation, so maybe 3D modeling is way cheaper than doing 2D artwork sprites. If anybody who watches this knows anything about that, let me know. Maybe that's why they're going those routes. And I could see why it would save time, because 3D modeling is way easier than trying to do stuff by hand, even if it's, I'm sure, hand digital drawing. When it comes to lights and shadows and stuff like that, it would be a lot easier in 3D. Now, this is going from somebody who had one 3D modeling class back in 2003 or so. No, not 2003, about 2005, something like that. So, they're still in high school then. Crap. Anyway, my thoughts on it is, I hope that there's still some room left for a traditional 2D animated fighter to still be around. I'm not against things like Guilty Gear or Street Fighter, but games like King of Fighters could have benefited either from going back to that traditional 2D style. I mean, sure, they could have benefited from a very flashy kind of maybe inky art style or some type of style choice, but I feel that one should have definitely stayed 2D for sure. But let me know what you guys think. Do you miss the traditional 2D animated fighter? Are you okay with 2.5D? Do you like the style better? What do you think? Do you think it actually affects the flow of the gameplay? Some people say it actually does, so let me know down in the comments below. We are still working on the Fire Emblem Fates. Dang it. Basically, Fire Emblem Tensei Megami game for the Wii U. We'll just call it that, because I can't remember the name off the top of my head. But we're going to be talking about that review. It just takes me a while because I play big chunks of it at a time, and that's just kind of how I play those type of games, because they're just really good to play with one big setting. And so I'm trying to work hard to get through that one, so I'm still not very far in it, but I did want to put something out, and I want to get my thoughts out on this. So guys, I want to thank you guys for watching. Check out some of the other stuff here you see. Subscribe if you're not subscribed to the channel for other great content. Streams and stuff is something that I'm still trying to figure out, again, how to do it, because there's so much other content I want to make, and figuring out time management and stuff, so yeah. So I appreciate you guys bearing with me on that, and I hope you enjoyed this topic video. Until next time, game on.